This is the Digital Savage Experience Podcast, hosted by Roman Prokopchuk, bringing you all things digital marketing, tech, business, and motivation. What's stopping you from becoming relentless in all aspects of life? Are you ready to become a digital savage? Let's get into today's episode.
Hey everyone, this is Roman Prokopchuk, and this is the Digital Savage Experience Podcast. Today I have with me Ron Kamen. Ron is the CEO of EarthKind Energy Consulting and host of the AWESome EarthKind Podcast. Ron's life mission is to empower everyday people to make clean energy transitions to reduce their carbon footprint and save them money. Thank you for joining me.
Oh, thanks so much for having me on the show, Roman.
My pleasure. So tell me a little bit about your journey. How did you get to where you are now? Kind of if this is something you've always been into, how did you kind of pivot into it and kind of the journey along the way?
Yeah, thanks so much. So it began, I guess, actually with my grandfather coming over on a boat when he was about 6 years old. And then he had a house in Queens, in Flushing, Queens, right outside of New York City, where I grew up. My grandparents had the first floor, and my mom and dad and my brothers, 4 brothers and I, 5 kids, had the second floor. So 2 bedrooms, not unlike, I guess, your childhood experience in some way, till I was about 15. And then my parents had built a house out on Long Island where we used to go for summers sometimes, and then eventually we moved out there. I went away to school up to the State University, where I was studying math and accounting, and I was always good at accounting. I liked the debits to equal the credits. That sort of systemic balance was always appealing to me. But initially I had gone because I wanted to be able to get out of the rat race, and I thought I was going to go become an accountant, work half the year, and then take the other half of the year to get away from it all, and realized my last year that wasn't the way that it worked, that, yeah, you work like a nut during tax season, but the rest of the time you also work pretty crazy. And the more I got into the accounting, the less it was the common sense stuff, the more it was some little loophole here and there that somebody had put into the law for what you can squeeze out of this piece. And I realized that wasn't quite where I wanted to be. I lucked out and went to graduate school where I studied system science, and that opened my mind to the reality that everything's a system, that we have our economic systems and political systems and biological systems and social systems. And I studied a whole bunch of things in my graduate work that just made me realize that life is short. And through some personal experiences I had as well, I realized that, we all have this feeling sometime that we're in the right place, doing the things we're supposed to, and we all have this kind of life mission. And came out of that college experience about the same time, realized that energy was really my mission. And at that time, they were raising utility rates. Energy rates were going through the ceiling, where I started working with senior citizens who were literally closing down chunks of their homes because they couldn't afford to heat and eat. They had to choose on their fixed incomes which they were doing. And I started working first with a group of people around a dining room table, and then it became hundreds of people, then thousands of people. And I became an energy policy and an energy expert. And that grew for 10 years. I became a community organizer in upstate New York, had about a 90-mile radius around Binghamton, New York that I served. Worked with a lot of different kinds of people in this nonprofit situation, which was pretty exciting, very, very informative, and got into not just energy, but then energy in the environment, and economic and social justice, and did a whole bunch of work there. Came out of that in 1990, actually, when I became the Mid-Atlantic director for Earth Day at the time, and that's where I met a guy named Dennis Hayes, who had founded the first Earth Day. Dennis is an incredible individual who's now gone on and done some amazing things. I think most people have heard of Earth Day, and Earth Day is now an international event. It's actually the most celebrated secular holiday in the world. And Dennis is not only continuing to do Earth Day, but he's also built an amazing building out in Washington, in Seattle, Washington, that actually produces more energy than it uses, which is pretty incredible. That's one of the first interviews I have actually is with Dennis. But in that process of afterwards, I came out and I started a nonprofit that then led into a nonprofit and a for-profit. And about 20 years ago, I started working as a for-profit consultant, working with businesses, institutions, nonprofits, government, to help them figure out, everybody's got a big energy bill. And what we came to realize is that energy bill that we have for electricity, for heating, for transportation, every dollar that we're spending on energy is about 90% of our greenhouse gases and carbon footprints. So when you think about the environment, and if you have concerns about what's going on and where things are at and where are we going and how do we have an impact, first thing to do is to take a look at your energy bills and realize that every dollar that you're spending is a dollar that's going towards producing carbon most of the time, and that there's ways that actually you can save money on those energy expenses and have an impact on the environment and simultaneously save yourself some money and get some decent returns on investment. So I've been lucky over the course of my career to work with a lot of people to help them figure out in their particular situation what's the best way to access capital or to get tax benefits and other incentives, or to have third parties finance these energy improvements that save them money at the same time they have a major impact on the environment. So long story short, it's been an interesting ride from where I started in Queens through where I live now in upstate New York. And I've worked with some incredible people. The folks I'm always amazed by people. And part of what started AWESome EarthKind was that I came to realize that I had a lot of questions over a long period of time from individuals, right, who, have situations. We all have our situations, how much money we spend on electricity or on heating or on transportation. And I've never was able to really work with individuals just because it takes about the same amount of time as it takes to work with a commercial account to help anybody in one sort of status. And when COVID hit, I realized that, there's a lot of evolving technology now that lets one person really reach many, and to have the ability to have an impact on a lot of people and to set up groups of folks that can work together to figure out different situations. So the idea behind AWESome EarthKind is that we can all have an impact, and there's a way to access this information, and I'm a decent resource for people who want to figure out what they can do. The awesome, by the way, comes from the air, water, earth, and sun, AWES, the forces of nature that continue to awe us almost every day when we take a look around and see what's happening around the world with floods and hurricanes and tornadoes and fires and incredible power of the earth. Just the forces of nature are amazing. But then the end part of awesome is ME, and that's you and me, and really that's all of humanity. There's now 7 billion of us, and the 7 billion of us are having a major impact on this planet. We're literally changing the climate. We're threatening the life support systems that sustain us. So everything from the air and the water through all the impacts we're having on the earth itself. And the reality is that we can change things, is that we have the technology, the energy is there, it's all around us. The forces of nature are 1,000 times more energy than we use, and it's free when you tap into it. The even better news is we now have the technology that can tap into those sources of energy and channel it into our everyday energy usage. And the best news of all is that we can save money when we're doing it. And if we do and approach this systematically as a society, if we approach it systematically as individuals, what you find is that you can have outstanding returns on your investment if you have capital, or you can have third parties that'll put up the capital in most cases and give you just immediate savings and have a great impact on the environment that when we leave our legacies, we'll actually leave behind something better for our kids and grandkids. So to me, it's an exciting time.
Yeah, I agree. I think everyone can kind of make better decisions, and those decisions, like you said, are oftentimes more cost effective than kind of traditional energy sources, and they make your environment or where you actually live, because obviously pollution is a concern in different places of the world. And I think during the pandemic, kind of when you saw countries going full lockdown, like nature kind of started healing itself and air quality started to get better. So it's just one of those things where sometimes we need to step back and figure out what's, kind of co-beneficial for our environment and ourselves as well.
Yeah, man. It is really amazing. And, big part of the environmental impact was because we started driving less, right? So transportation in general, when you take a look at the greenhouse gases and the pollution, a third of it comes from the electricity we generate and use. A third of it comes from the heating and cooling that we do in our buildings. And then the other third of it, in many places, it's more than a third, is from the cars we drive and the transportation that we do. So when we were locked down, in many parts still locked down, what's happened with that transportation is it slowed down, and you notice a dramatic improvement in air quality. And then you're right, nature started coming back. And that's the really fascinating thing, is that, we have a tremendous natural healing ability, both us as individuals and then the world as a planet, as an integrated system. So if we just decided that we want to take advantage of these technologies and tap into this power, we can regenerate, we can recover some of the things that we've been losing, and we can actually create a future that is bright and sustainable as opposed to hopeless and full of despair. So, yep, you're exactly right.
Hey, great. So what motivates you to succeed? Obviously, those motivations change over time and the variables you're dealt with in life, but what currently kind of motivates you to succeed?
Yeah, thanks so much, Roman. Well, one, I really love people, and I love helping people. It's always been something that just gives me a charge, And two, I have some kids. As I got older, I wasn't going to have kids when I was in college. It's kind of a funny story. So I had thought there was too many people on the planet. I had a mission. I decided in my life I wasn't going to have kids. And a couple of years later, I fell in love. The woman I fell in love with had a kid. So I married into a kid, had 2 kids biologically. So then I had 3 kids. And then about 20 years or so later, my then wife decided she wanted to move on. And I had 3 kids, and I was like, I was dating, I was having a good time, but I eventually realized that I really needed to find someone who also had kids, because my kids came first in my life, and put it out to the universe, and I wound up having 4 more. So I wound up from no kids actually having 7, which was a pretty interesting ride. And there's no doubt that my kids and my future grandkids all are very high motivator. But I think the biggest thing that's always motivating me is, look, what is it that makes us as human beings really feel like we're human and that we're doing what we're here to do? And for me, it's always been having an impact and helping people become empowered so that they feel like they can take a step in their lives. Energy in the environment, it's about our health, it's about breathing, it's about the water we drink, it's all those things that are just so critical to our life. And it's also creating a better life for future generations. So to me, that's always been my motivation, and I've been lucky enough along the way to be able to find a way to also make a living doing it and to be able to call my own shots. So I've been an entrepreneur, either running a nonprofit as the executive director or then running my own business for pretty much all my career. So my motivation is to help people to be able to do well while I'm doing good, and to also see that I'm empowering people so that they take more control of their life and have a positive impact on things that make a lot of difference to them, both health and the environment.
Yeah, and I think it's important, obviously, like you said, to finding the right situation personally and professionally and figuring out really what makes you happy. Obviously, sometimes we're kind of forced out of necessity to do other things, but ideally getting to the point where what you do professionally really makes you happy and fulfills you, as well as obviously lines up with what you aspire to do in terms of that family time and what you're looking to see as, you being your personal family and friends around you.
Yeah, I mean, your story is pretty incredible there. I mean, you come out, you think you're going to be in criminal justice, the economy collapses, and then all of a sudden you get into this digital experience, and Digital Savage is born, and you're just rocking the world. I mean, how cool is that, right? So, yeah, it's always an interesting ride, right? What turns us on and how we wind up in a different place maybe than we thought. But if you keep following your passions and you follow your heart, you do it what you know you can do and should do, I think it all works out.
Yeah, I agree. So what's one thing you may have seen as a weakness in yourself in the past that you've turned around and utilized as a strength today?
What a great question, man. So, I had 4 younger brothers, right? And of the 5 of us, I was the one who was into school, right? I was the only one that really, I would sit in front of the TV when I came home, do my homework and knock it out. And I did pretty well in school all the way along, except for one class. The one class that I failed when I was in elementary school was speech, because I was terrified to stand up in front of this group of kids and talk. And it really was my biggest weakness at the time. Fast forward to college, I was still scared. Fast forward to after college when I got a job as a community organizer and I started going out to speak with people about the issue, which at that point was energy. And I was scared. I was like, it was hard for me to talk to people. And then I realized that, I wasn't out there selling something to people that they didn't want. What I was really there to do was to help. And that little twist in my mind about how the fact that I was here to help people figure things out and make an impact, that was the turning point for me. And it winds up that in that first job, I started talking to first one-on-one and then people around kitchen tables, and then it was dozens of people, then it was hundreds of people, and various points in time it's been thousands of people, and I get a charge out of it now. So my biggest fear, my biggest weakness of talking to people became my best passion and one of my greatest strengths now. So
yeah, I think a lot of people have that fear. They just don't necessarily make it known. There's been, I think, several studies also that people identified speaking in front of people more terrifying. They're more afraid of that than actually passing away. So it's one of those things. I think everybody inherently has this kind of stage fright, or are you going to embarrass yourself, or what people are thinking of you to a certain extent, but getting past it. And the only way to get past it is really, get thrown into a situation, because in a school setting, you're still in a bubble unless you have some kind of public speaking class, and that's still kind of staged. So you need real world scenarios for that and other things that you may experience in life to really either overcome or develop a mechanism to really kind of, keep it in line in terms of not being afraid or letting it impact the way you speak or you sounding nervous, really having what you need to say directly and kind of getting all that information out and kind of, like you said, being genuine about it and helping people. Because a lot of people approach me for different things, and sometimes that pitch is just a pitch. It's not like a genuine relationship or offering anything of value. It's, let me give you this and or let me tell you this and I want something in return. So I think coming at it with something of value and really wanting to help at the end of the day really makes that conversation a lot easier.
Yeah. What I found was that, as you said, just be yourself. If you're yourself, look, people can throw rocks at you or whatever, but ultimately we only have ourselves, right? So people can judge us, they could do whatever, but as long as we feel comfortable in our skin about who we are and the fact that we're there not trying to take advantage of each other, but really working to do good, ultimately that's the greatest confidence builder, and that's the best way of being able to express yourself.
Yeah, I agree. So what's one piece of advice you may have for the audience, personal or professional?
I guess, well, 2 things. On both the personal and professional piece, take a look at your energy bills. Take a look at what you're paying for electricity. Take a look at what you're paying for heating, and take a look at what you're paying for transportation. And in each of those sectors, the average is that we have almost 4 tons of carbon that each of us is responsible for from each of those sectors, depending upon where you live and what type of transportation you do and all these different factors. But it winds up that each of us is responsible for about 12 tons of carbon, and it's all in, 90% of it is in our energy bills. So take a look at your energy bills and realize that on electricity, on heating, and on transportation, there are things that you can do that can make a significant difference on your carbon impact, on your greenhouse gas impact, and it'll save you money. First thing. And that's true also for wherever we work. Wherever our workplaces are, that's also true, is whether it's a school and we're teaching or whatever kind of workplace we're at, whatever those energy bills are, that's also the carbon footprint. And so on a personal level, you can have an impact on yourself. You can have an impact on wherever you work. As a community, we also have the ability to do a lot. And if you're not currently active in your community, wherever that is, and defining that, same thing is true, is take a look at what you can do and where you can have an impact on your community, because collectively we have the ability to do a lot on our local communities. On a professional basis, which is also somewhat personal, I would say that my biggest source of joy is that every day I get up and I love doing what I do. I've never really worked a day in my life because I would do this even if I didn't get paid for it, because I love it. And so what's your passion? Find your passion. If you can find your passion and work your passion, there's almost always a way to make that happen. Not entirely true all across the board, but there are ways to find things that you're passionate about in many different ways, and find your passion and seek to find a job where you can fulfill your passion, because when you can do that, life is great. Most of the time that we spend in life is spent at work, most of our waking hours. And so if you hate your job, as I've known many people who do, it really takes a toll on your soul. It takes a toll on your health. It takes a toll on your whole life. So I guess my biggest advice to folks would be find your passion and find a way to work at that passion.
Yeah, because there is spillover, like you said. So if you're miserable at work, that stress you kind of bottle up, you take home, and then you end up taking that out on your, loved ones, friends, and family. So really figuring that out, obviously, a lot of the time it's not as easy to walk away because there's bills and responsibilities, people you have to take care of. But I think there's always an excuse for something, but there's always a way to overcome that as well. So I kind of say, if you wake up tomorrow, you have the opportunity to kind of change your trajectory or, the direction you choose to go. Obviously, that's not just a one step and everything is fixed. You have the perfect life, because at the end of the day, for me at least, it's not a stationary destination. It's a moving target. And when you get to one place, those goals or aspirations may change, and based on what you want to do at that point in life, that may pivot. But like you said, as long as you do what you love and makes you happy, and ultimately, for me at least, also being a heart-led entrepreneur where you give back and leave a legacy in one way or another, you'll always kind of be happy and enjoy what you're doing.
Yeah. I listened to a few digital experience shows where you were speaking, Roman, about that type of incremental change, or just taking a step, so you don't have to do the whole enchilada in one big fell swoop. If you just take a step towards where your dream is, and then you keep shifting, because you're right, it's a journey and it's going to keep shifting. It's a moving target. And even when you get to the place that you want it to be your short-term goal, then, there's always the next step. And so I absolutely agree with you. I think that that's a real key thing, is to just take a step every day, figure out what you can do that takes you closer to where you want to be.
Yeah, I agree. And it's a work in progress, because everything, in terms of changing a habit, human behavior is to stay comfortable regardless if you're unhappy or whatever you're going through. So taking that leap, taking that chance, and getting out of that everyday kind of habit is really hard, because your human nature is fighting that in terms of kind of survival. Do the same thing, don't kind of rock the boat. But stepping out of that, it is scary, just like we talked about kind of public speaking and other things in your career or personal life you may do. But you have to put in the work. If you don't put in the work, there's not going to be any change. And it's incremental. People oftentimes look at other people with social media and stuff like that. Why are they at where they are now? Why am I not? It's just a filter, a lens of somebody's, life in terms of some of the superficial things, that other things they don't see. So I think really kind of running your own race, and then doing the things that then become habits, to those habits carrying over and taking you to where you like to go.
Yeah, and one of the amazing things about human beings is that we can reprogram ourselves. We can actually, change who we are. We're not just what we're wired to be from when we've gotten into this, this genetic situation where we're born into, like many other creatures. We have the ability to adapt and to evolve and to change who we are, and that's one of the greatest strengths we have as human beings on this planet.
Yeah, I agree. So I really appreciate you stopping by today. Can you let the audience know how they can find you?
Sure. Yeah. So it's AWESome EarthKind, AWESome, AWESome, and then EarthKind, like man or womankind, but EarthKind, all 7 billions of us. So it's AWESomeEarthKind.com. And there'll be a special page, DSC/DSC. So AWESomeEarthKind.com/DSC. We'll have some various different opportunities for people there. One of the things that we do is we run a series of demonstrations of clean energy system. So for people that are interested in taking the next step, they're not quite sure what they can do with energy on electricity, heating, or transportation. This demonstration in 90 minutes, it's a free class. We walk through what our system is, how we help people figure things out. And then whatever your situation, there's a way for you to have an impact, to save energy, to save money, and to really leave a legacy for future generations. So
that's awesome. Thanks again for stopping by.
Thanks so much for having me. It's a pleasure. Thank you, Roman.
This podcast has been brought to you by Nova Zora Digital. Find out how Nova Zora Digital can help your company grow online. Learn more at novazoradigital.com. Until next time, all you digital savages.